Well, in this session today, I wanted to talk about predictive versus the reactive rostering. So as we understand more about the future operation models of our sector, we can look to the transformation playing out within the peak bodies to consolidate and revisit their business model as the sector continues to change from this reform. The new focus this year will be managing the case mix adjusted care models that will come in this October with the AN-ACC funding, but will then be mandated from October of 2023. Now let's revisit this. As we know from the reform announcements, the 200 average minutes of per bed per day care, and of that, the 40 minutes linked to RNs, are requirements of an on-average target across the sector. So in practice, each facility will have its own care time target prescribed depending on the AN-ACC case mix of the resident in that facility at a point in time. So as AN-ACC classifications change within a site, the subsidy paid by the minute has different outcomes, which means, contrary to the previous funding models like ACFI and RCS, more revenue isn't always the best outcome under AN-ACC because it drives further reliance on heavy rosters, and providers can have their star ratings impacted greatly if they can't track the ongoing requirements through their daily rostering periods. Now, as seen here, the subsidy received for each care minute worked is greatest towards the lower end of the AN-ACC classification scale. Now, the blue indicating the subsidy received and the purple indicating the required care minutes achieved in direct care for that case mix. The collected subsidy less the required care minutes enables us to track the subsidy paid per minute. Now, in practice, comparing the care minute requirement with the daily subsidy rates for each classification provides the operating result for each AN-ACC classification. This will create a unique measure of subsidies paid for each care minute provided. Therefore, the industry will need to move from the standard master roster approach or reactive rostering approaches to more of a predictive approach. Now, predictive rosters will provide adequate clinical time for the care needs of the residents in situ, as well as boost the organization's overall star ratings for their facility, while not overspending. To achieve this, the most beneficial operating result for your RACs, providers will need to access sufficient data during roster periods, as well as referencing historical performance, admission movements, admission pipeline, respite conversions, staff leave, staff patterns, etc., each day to get this right. Now, reactive rosters will not predict resident movements and claim changes prior to publishing a roster, which leads to days of overspending and star rating damage. If we look to this example, a provider could start a fortnight by grossly overspending on their roster for the first week to then miss the requirements and damage their star rating by not seeing all of the information the Medicare data is informing, which should trigger the provider to flex the rosters and meet the needs of the RAC's new admissions and AN-ACC classifications and reclassifications, as well as any of the discharged residents moving out during that period.